ครับสวัสดีผู้ชมทุกท่านที่ชมอยู่ทาง Facebook คณะดุริยางคศาสตร์มหาวิทยาลัยศิลปากรนะครับขอต้อนรับเข้าสู่งานศิลปากรอาร์เคดนะครับ2021นะครับซึ่งเป็นกิจกรรมออนไลน์จัดโดยคณะมัณฑนศิลป์แล้วก็คณะดุริยางคศาสตร์มหาวิทยาลัยศิลปากรนะครับครั้งนี้ก็จะเป็นครั้งที่ 4 แล้วนะครับใน13กิจกรรมออนไลน์วันนี้จะเป็นในชื่อเรื่องว่าJazz Guitar Improvisation นะครับเวิร์กช็อปโดยอาจารย์ชื่อว่าโอลาเบงสันนะครับซึ่งเป็นจริงๆแล้วอาจารย์โอลาเบงสันเนี่ยอยู่ที่ทางเรียกว่า KHM นะครับเรียกว่าเป็นมหาลัยที่ทางสวีเดนนะครับซึ่งทางคณะดุริยางคศาสตร์เนี่ยมีความร่วมมือทางวิชาการอยู่ด้วยนะครับจริงๆประวัติคร่าวๆของทางคุณโอลาเนี่ยครับก็จริงๆจบเบิร์กลีย์มานะครับซึ่งเป็นที่อาจารย์หลายๆท่านของคณะดุริยางคศาสตร์ก็จบจากที่นี่มาเมื่อปี1977จนถึง1980นะครับเรียนที่บอสตันมาแล้วก็ปัจจุบันก็อย่างที่เรียนไปเป็นอาจารย์นะครับเป็น Director of Studies นะครับของสาขาดนตรีแจ๊สนะครับแล้วก็เป็น Senior Lecturer นะครับที่ Royal College of Music in Stockholm นะครับแล้วก็วันนี้ก็จะมาพบกับอาจารย์โอลาที่จะมาถ่ายทอดความรู้ทางด้านเรื่องของ Jazz Theory นะครับ Jazz Harmony พวก Composition พวก Arranging แล้วก็ Ear Training กีตาร์อะไรต่างๆนะครับก็เพื่อไม่ให้เป็นการเสียเวลานะครับขอต้อนรับผู้ชมทุกท่านพบกับทางคุณโอลาเบงสันนะครับlike to introduce everyone to Ola. Ola, welcome.
Thank you, Shanutra.
And also we are joined by our faculty members from Silpakon University, starting with Mr. Wutichai Lersathakit, Dean of the Faculty of Music.
Hello สวัสดีครับ
แล้วก็ยังมี some other faculty members including Sunny Ratana, Julian, Carrie, Pisut Prati Prasen, and also we also have our part-time guitar instructor, Mr. Chris, Mr. O ครับเรียกคริสและเขิน โอเคครับ Shall we start, Ola? Can I call you Ola?
Yeah.
Mr. Bengtsson?
No,
Ola,
no,
right? Ola's fine, right? Okay. All right.
That's easier.
Let's get started.
Okay. Thank you very much for inviting me. I'm very happy to meet you all. And I hope I can make myself understood. And if there's any questions, don't hesitate to stop me at any time so that you don't miss anything if you think I said something important. I am just going to tell a little bit about myself, since you probably don't know it very much, since I'm mostly well known here in Stockholm or Sweden. And then we'll go into some more details about guitar and also about theory and about music in general. And then, any question would be very nice to have. So just think of something that you're interested in and let me know. Or let my help here with Shanutra and everybody who's translating, let them know. You can write in the chat if you like. On the screen, you can write there. But if you write in Thai, I wouldn't understand. So then I would need some help with translating. But I'll start just telling a little bit about myself. I started out playing guitar maybe when I was about 8 years old. I grew up in a village where they had a guitar factory, actually, one of the few in Sweden. So everybody in the town had like an acoustic guitar. So that's how I started. And then I kept going. I started playing in other groups or in pop groups and rock groups and blues and stuff. That's how I started. There was no music school at the time when I grew up. This was in the 60s. So I had to teach myself from trying to find some books at the time. But I kept playing in different bands, like big bands. And then I grew more into jazz as time moved on. And I heard some things that I was interested in jazz. And then I started listening more and more and also played a lot of jazz, but I didn't understand what I was doing. Do I need to stop and you translate, or should I go on?
Yeah, go on, please. We do a short summary.
All right, great. So when I was 19 years old, I just thought, if I'm going to continue in music, I need to know what I'm doing, because I was just playing by ear all the time. I started playing blues and then got into jazz, and I started playing mostly patterns on guitar, so that I could, if I was in a certain key, I would locate that key on the guitar, and then I would kind of, with the patterns that you usually learn on guitar, that helped me, and then I could get through the songs, and I got fairly successful. But I felt myself I couldn't go on like this, so I really need to know what I'm doing. So at that time, there was no schools in Sweden that taught jazz or the music that I was interested in. So I had to move I went to Berklee College of Music in Boston, because that was a famous jazz school that I have read about. So I went there from I was 19 to 22, I think. 3 years there. I took a bachelor there. And then I came back, and then I started working as a teacher and playing as a musician in Stockholm. I moved directly to Stockholm. So that's a little bit about my background. Then I've been teaching in Stockholm since, and then I have been managing the jazz department there where they started out, and brought a lot of things from Berklee into the jazz curriculum at school in Stockholm at the Royal College. So we've been working with that, and it's been, if I may say so, quite successful. And I've done some theory books and stuff like that, so that everybody can benefit from the stuff they did at Berklee. And then we have changed it a little bit to fit the Swedish school system a little more. So, and then, I've been teaching there for a long time and playing in Stockholm area and around here.
โอเคนั้นขออนุญาตพี่วุฒิก่อนแล้วกันนะครับเพราะผมแปลสั้นๆแล้วกันครับถ้าท่านอาจารย์ท่านอื่นมีอะไรเสริมได้เลยนะครับจริงๆสำหรับน้องๆที่อยู่ในแชทแล้วก็ชมที่ Facebook จริงๆเขาเริ่มตั้งแต่ตอน8 ขวบใช่ไหมครับ8 ปีใช่ไหมครับอายุ8 ปีก็เพราะว่าในหมู่บ้านเขาเป็นลักษณะที่สวีเดนมันมีกีตาร์โรงงานกีตาร์อยู่แล้วทุกๆหมู่บ้านทุกๆคนเนี่ยก็จะมีกีตาร์เล่นอะไรอย่างเงี้ยครับซึ่งตรงนั้นมันไม่มีโรงเรียนสอนดนตรีอะไรนะครับเขาก็เล่นพ็อปเล่นบลูส์อะไรมาเรื่อยๆที่โรงเรียนใช่ไหมครับเรียกว่าเป็นอะไรที่หัดเองด้วยตัวเองจนแล้วก็ได้มีโอกาสเล่นในบิ๊กแบนด์เล่นในวงบลูส์อะไรต่างๆแต่ส่วนมากจะเป็นหัดเองจากหูอะไรมากกว่าจนตอนอายุ19เขาคิดว่าอาจจะอย่างนี้ต่อไปไม่ได้แล้วอาจจะต้องมีการศึกษาดนตรีอย่างเป็นกิจจลักษณะเพื่อที่ให้รู้ในทางลึกใช่ไหมครับก็เลยไปเรียนที่เบิร์กลีย์ที่บอสตันครับใช้เวลา3 ปีที่เรียนอยู่ตั้งแต่อายุ19จนถึงอายุ22ใช่ไหมครับแล้วก็ได้วุฒิทางปริญญาตรีมาแล้วก็กลับมาที่สต็อกโฮล์มที่สวีเดนนะครับก็เล่นหลายเยอะแล้วก็เป็นอาจารย์อยู่ที่ KHM นะครับ Royal ของMusic Conservatory ของที่สวีเดนใช่ไหมครับที่สต็อกโฮล์มใช่ไหมครับแล้วก็ได้มาเป็นหัวหน้าสาขาแจ๊สนะครับแล้วก็พยายามปรับหลักสูตรอะไรต่างๆที่เรียนที่เบิร์กลีย์เอามาใช้ที่ทำให้เหมือนพัฒนาวงการแจ๊สของทางประเทศสวีเดนครับOla please continue
Okay. Yeah, so I started working in school in Stockholm, and started out in theory, because that's what was missing. Mostly they were doing classical theory, and it didn't really help a lot for the improvisation, the musician that wanted to improvise. So we started teaching a little bit about the theory from an improvisational point of view instead of a classical view. So that we've been doing since. And then also composition in the same way. We started thinking about more jazz theory, even in composition. And then, I've been doing that for the last many years. And also been playing in different groups here. I've played in Stockholm Jazz Orchestra, which is a big band that works all over the place with different people. We've been touring South Africa a little bit, and United States, and also around Europe a bit. And then we had different guest teachers like Maria Schneider and people like that. And it's been really nice to do. And also I've been mostly playing for my, with my own small groups, like trios and quartets and like things like that. I've been playing here around Stockholm area a lot. And teaching, of course, I've developed some, more different views of how to teach on guitar, teach improvisation on guitar, because guitar is kind of It's a little different maybe from other instruments because of the pattern organization. A lot of people play with patterns, and my mission has been try to get out of the patterns and try to play a lot more linear along the neck. And that's what I've been trying to develop a little bit of teaching method for that. Okay, I'll stop there a little bit maybe.
พี่วุฒิเชิญไหมครับหรือว่าผมแปลต่อดีครับ
อาจารย์พงษ์เชิญเลยครับ
ได้ครับ
เอาเลย
ได้เลยครับก็ทางอาจารย์โอลาเขาก็พูดต่อว่าเขาก็พยายามเอาพวก Jazz Theory ใช่ไหมครับเรื่องการมุมมองของการ Improvise อะไรเนี่ยเข้ามาหรือว่าเรื่องของการแต่งเพลงใช่ไหมครับเอาเข้ามาประยุกต์ในเรื่องของการสอนที่สต็อกโฮล์มของเขาที่เขาสอนอยู่ใช่ไหมครับแล้วก็เรื่องโปรเจกต์ต่างๆที่เขามีวงอยู่เนี่ยครับก็เขาก็เล่นกับอะไรเยอะซึ่งเขาเป็นสมาชิกคนหนึ่งของ Stockholm Jazz Orchestra นะครับซึ่งเป็นวงใหญ่ๆของที่นู่นอย่างเงี้ยครับซึ่งก็มีเรื่องของการแสดงคอนเสิร์ตตามต่างประเทศทั้งยุโรปทั้งอเมริกาอะไรต่างๆหรือเซาท์แอฟริกาใช่ไหมครับที่เมื่อกี้เขาพูดถึงว่ามีการทัวร์คอนเสิร์ตต่างๆแล้วก็ในฐานะที่เป็นหัวหน้าสาขาแจ๊สเขาก็ยังเชิญศิลปินรับเชิญต่างๆอย่างมาเรียชไนเดอร์เนี่ยเข้ามาเหมือนว่าเวิร์กช็อปอย่างที่ศิลปากรเราทำอยู่ด้วยการเชิญวิทยากรชาวต่างชาติเนี่ยเข้ามาเป็นส่วนหนึ่งของการถ่ายทอดความรู้ใช่ไหมครับแล้วก็เขาก็ยังเหมือนอาจารย์แจ๊สของเราครับมีกลุ่มอื่นเช่น small group เล่นเป็น trio quartet อะไรอย่างเงี้ยครับแล้วก็ค่อนข้างที่จะแอคทีฟในแจ๊สซีนของทางสต็อกโฮล์มใช่ไหมครับแล้วก็พยายามที่จะส่งเสริมให้เขาก็เน้นย้ำเรื่องของการเล่นที่เป็นกีตาร์ที่เป็นแพทเทิร์นอย่างเงี้ยครับเขาอยากจะเหมือนว่าถ่ายทอดเรื่องการเล่นที่เป็นลีเนียร์ที่ตรงเน็กที่ตรงหัวกีตาร์อะไรสักอย่างนะครับที่ให้มันมีวิธีการเล่นที่มันไม่เป็นแพทเทิร์นเป็นรูปแบบที่มันซ้ำๆกันจนเกินไปอะไรอย่างเงี้ยครับที่เขาพยายามคอนเซปต์ในการสอนเป็น teaching method ของเขาเนี่ยครับเป็นวิธีในการสอนเขาพยายามเน้นที่จะให้หลุดออกจากเรื่องของการเล่นแบบแพทเทิร์นครับ Ola please
Hey, thank you, Shinat. Yeah, so I don't even know how many of you are guitar players. I can't see you all, but if you want to just raise your hands and then I can...
ยกมือ
I think most of the students their cameras are off I think but from my estimate I think about 20 students playing guitar we also have some drummers and other instrumentalists too feel free to cover anything apart from guitar I think but we focus mainly on guitar player
yeah I'll start a little with theory then and we can go into guitar a little later so to improvise, usually people teach scales, and that's been around for a long time. And that's, of course, a necessary tool. But when you are in one key, the scales are all the same. So in order to differentiate and to make the chords sound right, then you have to, of course, focus on the chord tones a lot more. And with piano players, that's natural because they play that with the left hand. But for guitar players, sometimes it's hard to hear what chords they're playing when they improvise a single line on a song. So that's why a lot of my teaching has been focused on trying to hit the chord tones in different ways to understand how to get to the chord tones. And of course, the scales, they kind of come with that, because if you hear the chord sequence in the context that it's in the song, or if it's just made up, you hear the context of the harmony, and then automatically you will hear what scale it should be in between the chord in between the chord tones, right? So let me just show you some kind of example that you could try out for just to start with this. Let's say you have a sequence of F major 7. If you can hear me. Can you hear that? Yeah. F major 7 and then to an E flat 7. Just that to start with. E flat major 7 or F major 7 to an E flat 7, right? So then the chord tones, we can just play the chords, the arpeggio. We can start with F, A, C, E, F, A, C, E, and and then we go to the E flat, E. So those are all the chord tones. I try to connect to the closest one where I am, right? So now I played like 2 notes on each string. So I don't play over across the board. I play along the neck. So I play F, A on the same, and then C, E on the same. F, A. And then I move. So you hear very clearly what the chord is, right? And of course you can't play like this the whole time, but that's the idea. When you play arpeggio, you can try to do this instead of playing, across. You can do that, of course, too, but then some guitar players, they tend to stop thinking when they play like that. They don't know the notes anymore. So I try to make really clear, when you play along the neck, you really have to think the notes. Otherwise, it's going to be hard to do it. You have to do a lot of trial and error. But if you think hard, and then it's in the beginning, it will take some time, but then you will develop that really quick. So once you learn what notes are in the chords, that will be remaining, for the rest of your life, that. Right, so that's just an easy way to get started, and you can make a loop of that, If I put the looper on here. So I have a looper playing now, and now I can solo over that a little bit. So I'll start with just the chord tones. So that was just chord tones leading into each other. And now I'm going to try to play 8 notes with the scales. So I start with the chord tone on 1 and 3. So I will really focus on nailing the chord. So chord tones on 1 and 3, and in between I can use a lot of chromatics to get to that. So I start with the chord tone, 3, 4. That's how it should be. I was making a mistake. I'll start again. Just go on like that and then play 8 notes maybe. 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's 8 notes, the same idea. I try to play chord tones on 1 and 3. So that's just for nailing the chords. That's all. I'll turn that off. And then different ways of using chromatics is a lot of students usually ask how to get the chromatic notes into the playing, because it's boring with just playing the scales. So if you talk about different ways to approach the chord tones, then you have like a chromatic below. And you have have like a stepwise from the scale above. And then you have a combination of both, or a chromatic below. So that's a chromatic below and a stepwise above going to a chord tone, right? I'm just playing around F triad right now. And then you have like a double chromatic. Yeah, I have to explain a little bit. My hands are not really working out that well. I had a stroke like 2 years ago. Stroke where my hand was totally paralyzed. It was just hanging, so I couldn't play at all. But now I'm getting back to playing, but it's still not really doing what I want in my head. So sometimes it's sounding a little weird, but you have to excuse me. It's getting better. It takes a long time to recover from this stuff, but I'm working on it. So that's some of the ideas how to get to the chord tones. You can play like, and then you can, if you go up, it sounds better if you go a chord tone above, or a stepwise from the scale above to a chord tone. So if I go to F, I start with a G. If I go to A, the B flat is in the scale, so I lead down to the A, and then the D. So it'll be like, and then if I go down, it sounds better maybe if I go chromatic below. So if I go start with F to C, and then if I go in between the chords, I can do the same thing. Something like that. You get the idea, right? So it's kind of different ways to reach the notes. And then after a while, when you start playing, now you hear the chords very clear, right? Because I'm playing the chord tones on 1 and 3 all through. And you can, if you like, you can just practice on that for a little bit, just to make a little more clear what the notes are in the chords. And of course, you can do this in all songs, all kind of chord progressions. Let me know if you have any questions so far.
Maybe we translate now. Okay. โอเคอาจารย์โอล่าเขาพูดถึงเรื่องแพทเทิร์นนะครับแล้วก็ใช้คอร์ดโทนเป็นหลักนะครับเขาสาธิตด้วยคอร์ดที่เป็น F major 7 นะแล้วก็ E flat นะครับ2คอร์ดนะครับอันแรกก็ใช้คอร์ดโทนเป็นหลักที่เราเล่น Arpeggio ครับแล้วก็ส่วนใหญ่จะพยายามไม่เล่น Arpeggio ที่เป็นแนวตั้งจากสาย1ถึงสาย6อะครับเขาก็มีวิธีของเขาคือ1สายเล่น2โน้ตนะครับ1สายเล่น2โน้ตมาเมื่อกี้ตอนแรกเขาเล่นเป็นน่าจะเป็นควอเตอร์โน้ตนะครับแล้วก็เปลี่ยนเป็น8โน้ตพอเขาทำคอร์ดโทนเสร็จอันที่2ก็ทำเป็นสเกลนะครับเล่นสเกลพยายามให้คอร์ดโทนอยู่ในบีทที่1และ3นะครับแล้วก็เป็นควอเตอร์โน้ตก่อนแล้วก็เป็น8โน้ตตามมางั้นสเต็ปต่อไปพอเป็นคอร์ดโทนเป็นสเกลแล้วก็มีเรื่องโครมาติกนะครับก็มีเครื่องโครมาติกเข้ามาเขาพยายามบอกให้โครมาติกใช้โครมาติกเข้ามาแต่ก็ยังอยู่ในคอร์ดโทนที่เป็นตัว1และ3อยู่ประมาณนี้ครับเด็กๆมีคำถามไหมครับเข้าใจสเต็ปอันนี้ไหมOkay, we don't have any question. I have my question. Maybe you can tell about the like important with this practice. With the thinking, with the note, or with the shape of scale, or anything.
Well, I just through my teaching, I've just a lot of players they play a lot in the position, right? Because a lot of notes fit right in there, and it's easy to remember a position. But usually nobody thinks about the notes except Lewis. You have certain notes that you can do. right? So the more you can get into thinking, what are the actual harmony in the blues, you can develop a little more interest, maybe. It depends. I mean, if you're done with the regular blues and you want to move on a little bit to introduce some other notes and some other chords, then it's easy to do that in your lines. If you think about chord tones that are different from where you were. So let's say if you play an A, so if they play blues, and then if you want to go to F sharp 7 and B minor to E7, right? Then you have to know really what to aim for. And of course, everybody knows that if you play piano, then that's natural because you have always a focus on the left hand where you have the chord. Then it's very easy for you. But in the guitar, sometimes it's more abstract. What you have to really think of the chords and then make your lines go to those chords. So it's a little harder maybe, but just
Yes.
practice usually.
Okay, we have translate now. โอเคเขาก็ย้ำตอนว่าตอนแรกเขาอาจารย์โอลาเขาพูดถึงเรื่องว่ากีตาร์เนี่ยไม่เหมือนเปียโนในทาง left hand นะครับทางมือซ้ายมือซ้ายจะของเปียโนจะรู้ว่าเล่นคอร์ดอะไรเพราะฉะนั้นการฝึกเมื่อกี้เนี่ยก็เน้นว่าให้เรารู้ว่าเราเล่นคอร์ดอะไรโน้ตอะไรบนคอร์ดอะไรนะครับแล้วก็เมื่อกี้ก็เสริมว่าถ้าเรารู้ปั๊บเนี่ยเราก็จะสามารถอาจจะเพิ่มสีสันเรื่อง blue scale หรือเรื่องลิกของ blue ลงไปได้นะครับแต่ก็เมื่อกี้ผมถามว่าสิ่งสำคัญคืออะไรก็บอกว่าอยากให้รู้ตำแหน่งหรือรู้โน้ตนะครับเพราะว่านักกีตาร์เราส่วนใหญ่จะเล่นเป็น position นะครับโอเคครับnext two
Okay, yeah. I'll go into talking a little bit about scales. So I'll just share the screen here for a little bit. I'll find the thing I had here and I'll look into this. Can everybody see this now? Let me see your thumbs if it's okay. Okay, great. So this is a little sheet that I made. This is just to show a little bit like what scales usually occur in most standard songs. So I did this in F major and then I did it in D minor. You know, F major, then you get all these diatonic chords, like 1 major 7, 2 minor 7, 3 minor 7, and so on. And everybody knows that, right? Is that something I have to explain, or build in thirds from the scale? These chords are all from the same F major scale. And then if you play the scales from the first one here, you play the F, it's just F Ionian. And then if you play from G, of course it's G Dorian, and then A Phrygian and B flat Lydian and stuff like that. I think that's clear, right? Everybody knows that usually. And then to be able to play a lot of the songs, they usually borrow chords from other kind of modes, or they change keys. But if you don't want to change key and you want to see what mode it has changed to, then you have to know some about the minor scales that usually are included. So let's say here I compared with D Aeolian, which is the same as F major, but then it starts with the D minor, and then the next chord is 2 minor 7 flat 5, of course. And that's the same as if you have started here on the 6th chord. So everything is then coming after that. So I just to compare it. But then the important thing is here, when you choose to derive chords from D harmonic minor, then you get some different shapes here. And then the most common one is the one I have written out here. It's from the 5th of the D minor harmonic scale, and that's we call that a mixolydian flat 2 flat 6, because it sounds like this from A. So that's compared with a regular mixolydian, it has a flat 2 and a flat 6. A regular mixolydian will be like this. So that kind of prepares, the F sharp prepares to go to D major. So the dominant to D major. But if you want to prepare it to go to minor, usually, then it sounds like a good idea to change it to the Mixolydian flat 2, flat 6. So that's coming from D harmonic minor. And if we move on here to D melodic minor, we have all these new scales that usually are involved in a lot of jazz standards. So we have the melodic minor, of course. And then we have from E, if you compare that. So that's a Dorian flat 2. It's not used that much, but it could. And then we have the F major 7 or F major 7 sharp 5. That's not very much used maybe, but sometimes. But next one is very much used. That was the one I used when we played F major 7 to E flat 7. So that scale is called Lydian flat 7. That's like a regular scale with a sharp 4, regular major scale with a sharp 4 and the flat 7. So that's from the fourth note of melodic minor. And then we go on like this. And this one here, Lochran with a natural 2, is very much used if you want to go like a 2-5 to major. If you have a minor 7 flat 5 and a 5-7 going to 1 in major keys, then this one could be a nice one to use because it includes a C sharp, or a C sharp, and that's kind of the idea if you want to go to like a 2-5 in A. So it will be B minor 7 flat 5 to E7 and then go into A major. So it kind of prepares the major key a little better. So those are pretty much all the material that's included in the jazz standard repertoire, unless you change the key, of course. But then that's the same in all keys. Then you will see it in different keys. But that is pretty much all the scales that are included. So you have here the diatonic chords again in F, and then you have dominants to all those chords. Like a C wants to go to F, D7 wants to go to G, and the scales you can figure out if you're in F, right? And if you play a D7, D7 in F, you just have to change all the Fs to the F sharp instead, and then the rest can remain the same. So the scale will be like this. So that's an F major scale. I just changed all the F to an F sharp instead. And then that scale could be called Mixolydian flat 6, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, flat 6. And then the flat 7 is included in the name Mixolydian. Right? So those scales you can figure out pretty much on your own. You don't need to buy books for this. It's just, and we go to the next one. If you're in F7 or F major, and then you have like an E7, like here going to A minor, and let's, in the context of F major 7, then that E, you can just change, all the G's to G sharp to make the E7 chord, right? And then you can remain everything the same. So it's going to be E, F, G sharp, A, and you have to change the B to B natural because that's a chord tone in E7. But then you can remain the C, which is the flat 6. So that's a scale that fits well in the key of F if you have an E7 going to, for example, A minor, or going back to F major 7 maybe. So then that scale could be called Mixolydian flat 2 and 6 because it's compared with Mixolydian. It's a flat 2 and a flat 6 and a flat 7 in the name Mixolydian, okay? And then this one, F going to the 4 chord. That's a 5 of 4, and then that's just a mixolydian. And here we have going to the 5 chord. It's usually a mixolydian, but it could also be a mixolydian with a sharp 4, which is the same as a Lydian flat 7. Maybe all these names will confuse you, but if you play like a, let's say for example, you know that song maybe? So right, the second chord there. So that will be in the case, well, if I do it in F. So then would be, so the scale there that's included in that song would be a Lydian flat 7, because of the note in the melody, and that's usually what people use in this function when you have a 5/7 going to 5 of 5 we call it, and then you can try to use the Lydian flat 7 on this chord because that includes a sharp 4, and then that's a little extra spice in it, right? So that's usually very common on that. And then the last one, 5 of 6, this one, A7 going to D minor, for example, that's also mixolydian flat 6. If you want to play the F scale from the note A, it's a flat 2, and then you have a chord tone, C sharp, and then D, E, and then a flat 6, and a flat 7 going to 1. That will be the same as we talked about before, D harmonic minor, right? But it played from A, and then it's called A mixolydian flat 2 and flat 6. So those are pretty much used in those secondary dominant functions. And then here we have a relative 2 going to those, and that's just putting like a 2/5 before going to one of the diatonic chords in the key. So the scales for these are usually, if they're not diatonic to the key, they are usually just here you have a G minor that's in the key, so that's Dorian, and A minor you have in the key, also that's Phrygian. The B minor 7 flat 5 you don't have in the it's not a diatonic chord, but it usually, if you fill out from the key, it's going to be a Locrian scale, right? So B Locrian, and here it's C minor, you just play Dorian on that, and here you have a D minor, and that's in the key, so you could play Aeolian, but you could also play Dorian if you like, but it's, you know, all these scales are just suggestions anyway. You choose whatever you want if you start to know them a little more. And then E minor 7 flat 5, of course, it's diatonic too, so that's Locrian. And then we have some other chords that are borrowed from other neighboring scales, or related scales, I should say. So in a lot of songs you hear maybe or we play, you have a flat 2 major 7, that's what this is called. If you're in F, you have a flat 2, that's called G flat major 7. That's actually borrowed from a G or an F Phrygian scale. And if you write out the notes from F Phrygian and you start on G flat, you will find out that this scale is Lydian, and that works very well. So you have an F, and then you go to G flat Phrygian, or sorry, getting confused here, a G flat Lydian, and then you go back to F. Yeah, something like that, right? So, and then that's a common chord that's are in a lot of songs too. And this is like a 2 minor in a major key. And I talked about that before, that you can use a Locrian with a natural 2 on this to prepare the F major if you're in F, right? So yeah. to F. Sorry, I'm getting out of tune. Yeah, I have to fix that. And then the B flat minor. Let's say you play like a song like that. So that you could use a melodic minor on the 4 minor chord. And then you can go back to F, and it suits you have an A in this chord, and the A is the major third, of course, of the F key, F major key. So that could use, or you can have a B flat minor 6. It's the same thing. And then you can play, the same scale, melodic minor over F. And both these are derived. If you think of how much change is there on the original key F, then you can compare it, and then you can find out that these are all coming from F mixolydian with a flat 6. And that doesn't have to do with anything really. It's just to know that what happened to the key, the original key. Well, the original key was F. But when you introduce these chords, it changed a little bit. The mode changed. Sorry. It changed to mixolydian with a flat 6. So if you write out flat 6 mixolydian from F, you will find this melodic minor from B flat. They're all related, of course. Any questions?
Okay, maybe we translate now. Have a lot of things in this. อาจารย์โอลาพูดถึง start ด้วย F major scale ครับ major scale เป็นตัวฐานนะครับแล้วก็เป็นDiatonic Chord ใน F major scale ที่ทุกคนทราบอยู่ปกตินะครับแล้วเขาก็เปรียบเทียบระหว่างไป minor scale ทีนี้พอ minor ปั๊บเนี่ยเขาก็เอา A D Aeolian นะครับแล้วก็ D harmonic minor แล้วก็ D melodic harmonic และ melodic minor มาเปรียบเทียบกันนะครับแต่ว่าถ้าหลักๆก็คือเขาใช้เชฟของเซนเตอร์ของ key F major เป็นตัวหลักนะครับแล้วก็อันที่2ที่น่าสนใจคือ secondary dominant อันนี้เขาย้ำ secondary dominant นะครับจะสังเกตว่าเขาจะใช้ F เป็น center key จาก C7 นะครับพอถึง D7 นะครับพอถึง D7 ปั๊บก็จะเริ่มที่ scale F นะครับแต่ D7 นี่มันมีคอร์ดโทนที่เป็นตัว F นะครับก็เลยจะต้องเปลี่ยนตัว F จาก F เนี่ยเป็น F sharp นะครับแล้วก็ทำให้เกิดถ้าจะเปรียบเทียบไปมันก็จะทำให้เกิด mixolydian mode flat 6 หรือ flat 13 ที่เรารู้จักครับหรือตัว E7 นะครับถ้า E7 เนี่ยถ้าจะเล่น F major ลงไปเนี่ยครับมันก็จะต้องมีตัวที่เป็นตัวที่เป็นคอร์ดโทนของ E7 อยู่เช่นตัว G sharp ตัว B เมื่อกี้เขาบอกตัว B นะครับถ้าเทียบกับ scale ไปก็จะกลายเป็น F ถ้าเป็น E mixolydian flat 2 flat 6 นะครับจริงๆถ้าเราเรียกกันปกติเราเรียก flat 9 flat 13 นะครับคอร์ดอื่นๆก็เหมือนกันนะครับแต่ว่าก็จะมีชี้ให้เห็นว่าบางอันเนี่ยนิยมใช้เช่นตรง G7 นะครับตรง G7 ก็เป็น mixolydian sharp 4 หรือ sharp 4 ครับหรือมันเป็น lydian flat 7พูดแล้วจะงงไหมมีทั้ง2ชื่อสลับไปสลับมานะครับแล้วก็อีก2บรรทัดล่างเนี่ยครับก็คือเขาใช้คอร์ดที่มันอยู่ข้างนอกนะครับเพียงแต่ว่ามันอิงอยู่ใน scale F เป็นหลักอันนี้ผมว่าอาจจะอธิบายลึกลงไปหน่อยอาจจะไม่อธิบายเยอะนะครับส่วนถ้ายกตัวอย่างตัว F major 7 คอร์ดสุดท้ายครับ F major 7 นะครับก็ถ้าจะเทียบแล้วก็คือใช้ lydian ของมันเองก็คือตัว G flat lydian นะครับแล้วก็ G minor 7 5 คอร์ดที่2ก็จะเป็น Loxley natural 2อันนี้สงสัยเด็กๆอาจจะต้องลงไปดูตัวความคุ้นเคยกับคอร์ดกับสเกลแล้วก็โหมดครับอันนี้เขาจะเน้นที่สเกลแล้วก็โหมดแต่ว่าประเด็นก็คืออยู่เอาคีย์ตัว C center F เป็นตัวตั้งนะครับแล้วก็เปลี่ยนไปตามคอร์ดโทนต่างๆนะครับโอ Okay, finish. We don't have any question. For my question, maybe you can explain to 21 bar. I can't understand with the G minor, A minor, A, B half diminished with the relate with the in the F major scale.
Could you take again? I didn't understand what you said there. Just
okay. We have I have a question on the 21.
Okay.
Yeah.
21. Okay, so
Yep.
that's the related 2/5. Let's say if you have in a lot of songs, maybe let's say you have a song. You know that song?
Yeah.
Okay, so then you have that's in E flat, right? Or I played in F. And then okay, so then it's in F, right? And then I play a 2/5 to G, which is A minor 7 flat 5 and D7 going to G.
Yep.
I'm still in the key of F. I would like to retain the key of F, so the scale is A minor 7. And then the D7, I mean the A7, that needs a Lochran. That's I didn't include that in this, but the next chord that we come to. So that will be a B minor 7 flat 5 going to E7, going to either A minor or going back to F. So that B minor 7 flat 5, that's this one. That's a related to B minor E7 A. Key, right? So that's the scales for those. So that scale would be Lochran too. And that's the same. I mean, you can just use F major scale and just fill out the chord tones first, which is B, D, F, A, and then you fill out C in between here, and then E in between there, and then so that would automatically give you scale, right? If you start always with the chord tones and then you fill out the same with E, E7. So you fill out the chord tones, E,
Yep.
G, E, D, then you have the F in between, and then you have A, and then you have the C, and then D. So it would be a lot, a Mixolydian flat 2 and 6.
Okay. Thank you. I understand it. Okay. Cup.
The way to practice these things, I know that it's a lot of information right now, right? The way to practice is usually if you find it in a song, you can loop certain sequences. Let's say I would like to work on this one. You can see that that's a B minor, that's the 4 minor major 7, right? So I play that. I try to first, maybe if I'm a singer, I try to sing la 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 la. I'm not a singer, as you can tell, but then you start from the other one, B minor, la 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 la. So that's the melodic minor, and then you go in, you make a loop of those, just like I did before. You make a loop, and then you can choose if you want to make it funky or you want to make it just like a swing thing. You start. So I just stay with the loop. So I start to hear those things in my ear. And then I practice every chord this way. So if I want to go to the G flat major, it's the same. I did that before, yeah. And of course, if you want to use other scales and you want to try altered scales and things like that, I didn't include those here, but that's of course also derived from melodic minor. That's the last one here. This one here. If you're in D melodic minor, you play a C sharp, and then first, if you play it in thirds, you will get this chord, which is a C sharp minor 7 flat 5. But if you play the fourth note in the scale, which is an F, then you have a C altered chord instead, C7, with a flat 9, sharp 9, flat 5, flat 6. So that's a very common scale. And then you can use that, of course, the same way. If I play F major 7, and then play like a C7 altered, or you can play a D flat, Lydian flat 7, it's the same scale, but it's C7 altered. And then you go to F, right? So you start like just putting it in loops helps a lot. And now everybody's got a loop machine, so that's they're pretty cheap to buy now. When you have it on your computers and stuff, you can just write out the sequence, and then you can play that for a whole week. Then you never forget an altered scale or how to use it. Okay, any more questions? Because this is a lot of stuff here. Maybe it's too much at a time, but that's anyway a little bit of how I practice and how I can, if I find some of these things in songs, then I try to just take a little part of the song and just practice it very intense, so that I really know what I'm doing and I'm thinking all the notes. So then I learn it, and then I go on to another section of the song.
Okay, we have translate now. โอเคอาจารย์โอล่าเขาก็สาธิตอีกทีว่าตัวที่อยากให้ practice ครับก็ให้เลือกมาเป็น practice อาจจะ start ที่ F กับเลือกคอร์ดใดคอร์ดหนึ่งมานะครับแล้วก็ทั้งร้องนะครับแล้วก็เล่นนะครับแล้วก็มันเขาก็แนะนำเรื่อง loop back ก็คือเอา loop back เป็นตัวตั้งเล่น comping ไป2คอร์ดนะครับเพื่อให้ได้ยินซาวด์ทั้ง2เรื่องนะครับก็ประมาณนี้ผมเชื่อว่าเขาต้องการให้เราได้ยินเสียงในแต่ละคอร์ดแล้วก็เชนที่เปลี่ยนไป2คอร์ดที่เปลี่ยนไปครับโอเคน้องๆมีคำถามไหมครับมีในแชทเปล่า
ครับ Ola, before we go on, I like you to also meet one of our guitar professor just joined us, Mr. Dan Phillips. He's our full-time jazz guitar player from Chicago. Dan Phillips, please meet Ola, our instructor today.
Hello, can you hear me?
Now I can see you. Yeah. Nice to meet you.
Sorry, I joined a little late, but
No worries, Dan. No worries.
I was early.
Are you in Sweden now?
Yeah, I'm in Stockholm.
In Stockholm. Wow, awesome.
Yeah. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
So this stuff you probably do all the time here that I've been working on, but
yeah, I think the emphasis on chord tones is really important for the kids to be able to hear their way through the tunes also. So that's something that I really emphasize on sort of every level of standard tune, and then, once they can hear the chords, then the scales, and, basically that approach I think is highly effective.
Okay, it's a little difficult for me because I don't know exactly what you're doing and the questions that you have. So it might be good if some of the students might have some questions that really apply to them. It would be better.
Yeah, where are our student questions?
We have question in the chat. You can see in the chat.
Okay.
Yeah. Can explain about the B flat major chord? For example, we can use like a major augmented scale or in harmonic minor scale.
Major augmented or in harmonic minor scale. According to the B flat major chord, in example, major augmented, you mean like in B flat? Is that the one you're talking about?
I think for F major major augmented, I think so, maybe.
I'm not sure I understand the question, but I think you can try. I mean, all the scales that you can find is pretty much up to you to try to make it part of your vocabulary. I mean, if you want to play I don't know. I'm not using that much major augmented. I'm using more like a Lydian augmented maybe, because that doesn't have the augmented step in it. It's all very smooth, right? So the Lydian. Oh, sorry. That's a little easier to sing maybe for most people than to play. That's a Lydian augmented scale. I might use that instead. But I'm not sure. You will have to kind of put it in a context. It's hard to say just to use the scale in general. But if it's in the context, you can try different things. One thing, I mean, a lot of people ask, how do I play outside, right? And my question to that is, or my answer to that usually is, if you know how to play inside, then you got it too, to play outside, because then you just choose a different chord to get close to it. Let's say if I want to play a major 7 on F, it's really hard to play outside of that chord, but you can approach that chord maybe by playing like an E diminished scale, E half and a whole. So you can get close to that by approaching it from a different angle, like. So then I started with an E diminished, or actually an F diminished. It's the same. F whole half and E half whole is the same scale, but I'm usually thinking about it down a step. So that will be the same as if you would introduce, instead of playing the F major right away, you start with playing over an E7, and then it kind of gives you a little shake, and then when you resolve it to F, it will be like a nice resolution to it, right? So it's like that kind of idea. But I don't know. In general, playing outside is a concept that comes automatically. When you know how to play inside, then you really know how to play outside too, because you have to know that first. If you start by trying to play outside, it's going to be really strange, because you really have to know how to get to the inside. Otherwise, you won't have the resolution right. So I don't know if that answers the question, but you can try different scales of chords on different chords and see how it works. And if you get fluent enough in that language of the scale, then you can resolve it to whatever you want. And then that's like people say sometimes, that you can play chromatic over everything. And that's of course correct. But if you don't resolve it to the right notes, then it's going to be very difficult for most listeners to listen to. Let's say if I'm in F, and I want to go to the next chord, I want to go to a D. So I can go like this. Now I played a strange rhythm, but I'll do it again. Now, let's say for that example, then I can play anything really, that if I just resolve it. So this chord would be like an F to D7. So I just played an F major 7, D7, G minor to C7, and I resolved it in a way that made it very clear to hear. but I can also resolve it to to be altered, everything altered, and then it would be really strange to hear it. But it depends what I'm aiming for. If I want to be understood, or if I want to be a little bit unclear, and that's depends on the moment, of course. I have no idea if I answered your question.
Okay, maybe translate now. Okay, อาจารย์โอลายกพูดถึงเรื่องตัว outside นะครับ outside ก็เขาก็บอกว่าควรจะเป็น inside ก่อนแล้วก็เป็น outside ทีหลังตามก็ไม่ควรจะเป็นการคิดถึง outside ก่อน inside นะครับแล้วก็ยกตัวอย่าง F major 7 ไป D7 นะฮะไป G minor แล้ว C7 นะครับแล้วก็ตัวที่เป็น alter ก็คือ alter จากตัว chord shape เดิมครับตัว F major เดิมนะครับก็ประมาณนี้ครับไม่รู้ใครมีคำถามไหมครับจันโอมีคำถามไหมช่วยกันถามหน่อยหรือจันจูเลียนมีคำถามไหมครับหรือน้องๆมีคำถามไหมครับอาจจะเขินไม่ยอมถามกันso we don't have any question more from our student maybe จันโอถามไหมwe waiting for question for faculty member
ยังนึกไม่ออกเลยครับอาจารย์เพราะว่าเคลียร์ทุกอย่างเลย
ได้ครับ
หรือว่าน้องๆที่ดูอยู่ถามเข้ามาในแชทซูมก็ได้นะถ้ายังไม่กล้าพูดถามเลยเนาะถามแล้วเดี๋ยวพี่ซันพี่จูเลียนพี่แดนจะแปลเป็นภาษาอังกฤษให้ ถามเข้ามาในแชทได้เลยนะครับ
พิมพ์มาในแชทนะ
พิมพ์เข้ามาในแชทได้เลยครับพิมพ์แล้วเดี๋ยวให้คะแนนJulian, would you like to ask any questions?
Sure. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. I was just wondering, I've been kind of teaching the same thing to some of my students about like substitutions and how to take, or I guess starting from triads. I was wondering, did you have any good recommendations for specifically 2-5-1 language from perhaps the major scale? I guess how can I say this just as a summary from the full sheet about specifically 2-5-1 language.
Okay.
Just for some of my students that are just getting started with improvisation and don't have that language together at all.
Right. Okay. So playing triads, as you mentioned, that's a really good start, I think, to just to know the scale in triads. Something that I find very useful, and it's also very melodic. So if I play from F or in different inversions, and then I try the G minor. If I just do a 2-5 in F, so the G minor would be, and then the C. Sorry. And then to F again. So now I'm just using the top 3 strings for this, right? And so I don't have the whole guitar right now because I have to limit myself to different areas to get to know it a little better. So if I want to play through the chords, then I can play like diatonic triads. So the first one is F, and if I want to play maybe just 2 of those, like let's say 1 major and 2 minor, so it's F, and then to F again, to G minor again, F again, G minor, F. So all those, that would kind of make up for the sound of F if I have that. So I just play from F, G to F, F, G minor to F, F, G minor to F. And then when the G comes, I can play the G minor. The next diatonic triad would be A minor, and then I go to G, and then to A minor, and to G, to A minor, to G. So let's say I have a 1 bar of F and then 1 bar of G. It would be like this. Sorry. Sorry. To G. To F. So now you can start improvising with triads, and if you feel like playing those are like melodic instead, it will be like this. Now I maybe changed it a little bit because I was playing mostly in F right now, and then I went to G as a detour, and then I went back to F. And the detour is like the same as you're comping. If you're just comping in F, that becomes a little boring maybe, so you want to have some approach chords to get to that. So maybe you play like, so it's the same when you're soloing, so you can solo on like that. So now I'm thinking F triad, G minor triad, F triad, G minor triad, the whole thing. And then I could go, let's say if I'm, your question was a 2-5, so I go to G and then to C. So I do the same with C. And then I choose maybe C, B flat to C. I could choose B, G or C major to D minor if I want, but I want to try the B flat because that's it adds, you know, a 9 and the 4th and the 7 to the scale. So I'll have a C, B flat to make the sound of the C mixolydian, or just a regular mixolydian. And then I resolve it to some kind of F. Dan, I may have to, you came a little late. I have to explain. I had a stroke, so my fingers are not working that well. So
No problem. I understand.
yeah, I'm not faking everything.
No.
Okay, so I'll try again. So if let's say I'm in, I'll play the 2-5, the G minor. To F. Maybe that was a bad example. I have to think of something else. Let's say I changed, instead of, I take it out a little bit and I change it to C altered. So I play C minor, like, and then I change it to a C7 altered. And then I go to F, sorry. So G minor first. Sorry. And then to G flat. And then back to F. Let me start again. I'll rephrase it a little bit. So I'll play a little, maybe I'll play a little more, not only a 2-5, because I'll play a 1-6-2-5 instead, maybe. Adds a little more. Right, so I start with F, and then to play the D7, I can play a D. Then I go to the G minor. So I start with. Sorry. playing triads from G minor, and then I played triads from the D, Mixolydian flat 6. And then I play triads from the G Dorian. So I played G minor, F to G minor to F, or I played maybe A minor to B flat, and they're part diatonic to G minor, and then I play the C altered. And then I made it to F. It was a little out of tune. I need to tune it. More questions. Did that answer your question?
Yes, I'll try to explain it now. So อาจารย์อูล่าเขาบอกว่าประมาณเวลาเล่นเป็น 2/5 นะครับอันนี้สำหรับนักร้องนะครับจริงๆสำหรับใครก็ได้แต่เดี๋ยวพยายามอธิบายในฐานเป็นนักร้องนะครับก็ถ้ากำลังจะเล่น 2/5 นะครับในคีย์ F major มันจะเป็น G minor 7นะครับแล้วก็C7 แล้วก็ F major 7นะครับเขาบอกว่าบนคอร์ด G minor 7ถ้าเราคิดในบริบทของ diatonic เราอาจจะได้ expand จาก triad G minor อย่างเดียวเราจะได้สร้างอะไรที่มีความเมโลดิกอย่างสวยงามนะครับอย่างเช่นถ้าอยู่บนคอร์ด G minor พยายามสลับระหว่าง G minor กับ A minor นะครับบนคอร์ด G minor คอร์ดเดียวนะครับถ้าเข้าใจถูกแล้วก็สำหรับคอร์ดอะไรนะC7 เขาพยายามจะใช้ C major และ B flat major บนคอร์ด C7 มันจะสร้างซาวด์ของC mixolydian นะครับหรือว่า G flat major และ C major บน C7 นะครับมันจะสร้างซาวด์ของ altered นะครับแค่ใช้คอร์ด diatonic หรือคอร์ดที่อยู่ใกล้ๆคอร์ดหลักเพื่อสร้างซาวด์อื่นๆที่ไม่ใช่ triad diatonic หมดเลยไม่ใช่ ที่ไม่ใช่ triad ของคอร์ดในปัจจุบัน
ไอ้ที่คนไทยเหรอคุณว่าคนต่างชาติ
ประมาณนี้นะครับ
ขอบคุณครับคุณจูเลียนOla, we have a question from the chat. You can see.
Yeah, I think that
Yes.
it's probably from one of my students because we're working on Juju now, and Juju has the whole tone scale. Because the fourth year students get post-bop language, so this comes in. So they just asked about the whole tone scale, so maybe you could, I don't know, how you approach the whole tone scale or what have you.
Okay. So the whole tone scale, I to be honest with you, I don't use that very much. And that's a limit I have.
Yeah, I think in this case, it's because the tune itself has it in the melody, and the tune, it's part of the song. This particular song, it's kind of unavoidable, but...
then you have to work on it, yeah, of course.
Yeah.
But I don't know that song, and I haven't used that much of the whole tone scale, actually.
Okay, no problem, no problem.
So I'll leave that up to you. I'm sure you can very well.
No problem.
I have my limits. No, that's not. I would like to do it, but I haven't really worked on it yet.
Oh, okay, no problem. Yeah. It's one of the questions that came up. No problem.
Okay, more questions.
There's another one now.
If we have a second question about when you explain with the loop between two chords, between F major and E flat dominant 7, I think it's from a secondary chord. His question is we actually more. Question is, I feel like if I play the second chord, that is not diatonic. That's right.
That's right. Yeah.
We start from the diatonic in F and move to the E flat in not diatonic. That's
No,
right.
it's not diatonic. It's like a substitute dominant going to D minor. Yeah. But you can also go back. It's very common in different songs, you know, going like if Days of Wine and Roses, for example. So there you have it, right? In the second bar there. So then it sounds natural to use the Lydian flat 7 because you retain the A from the F major scale, right? So it's not in the key, that's right. It's like a substitute dominant going down to D minor. I choose that because it changed the scale a little bit. I was just trying to make clear how I think about, you know, moving to the chord tones and shift the scale around that, of course, too. Scale to fit the chord, I mean.
Okay, it's clear. จันฮงครับจันซันครับดูคำถามที่3ครับไม่รู้จะอธิบายก็ยังไง
คำถามที่3ครับซัน
ไอ้ที่บอกว่าเล่นต่อจากคนที่เล่นพีคใช่ไหมฮะ
ครับผม Ola, there's another question. We'll be translating into English for you. For this question, ซันใช่เลยครับ
Okay ครับ so they ask about when you play the solo and someone improvised before you, right? And he plays like a lot of notes or energy, something like that. And when he finished his solo, what should you do?
Yeah, that's a good question. I heard some people discussing that. I think Pat Metheny had that question after soloing after Michael Brecker. That's a tough question, you know, what to do. But I think what you have to think about is to, you know, make sure that you play yourself the best, you know, and if it's really high energy, it could be a choice to take it down a little bit and to make it grow, you know, because to start with really high energy after somebody else has soloed with a very high energy is very difficult, I think. And so it's usually better to talk to the rhythm section and say, well, we'll try to go up and down in energy so the audience will not be totally bored with high energy the whole time, because that could be very much, you know, to take in for an audience. So I think even though it may sound like trying to chicken out a little bit, or, you know, to retain that energy, if they're usually sax players, right? They usually burn, and then you come after that, and then it's really hard to keep that energy. But I think if you take it down and try to speak with your, you know, to make some very good choices of your notes and just try to make some sense, people will catch on to that and start to listening to that. So you don't have to be afraid of taking it down a little bit, and to make some real logic with it, you know, try to play very logical that people can follow, and make some melodic sense. I think that's the answer I can get, because trying to mimic some kind of energy that happened before you, that would be really difficult. Of course, you don't want to go down in energy sometimes, but if you have a choice, I would probably go down a little bit in energy and then make my own solo kind of lift after a while. But it's very hard to start up here and then grow, you know. Then it's better to start down here and then you grow, even though it's been up here before. That's usually what happens in most solos, as far as I've heard. But yeah, it's a very good question, and it's very hard to come in a situation like that. You can probably try to, if you're afraid of having that happen to you, maybe you can try to, you know, start soloing before that person starts solo. If you're afraid of some high energy soloist, then you should probably try to, you know, whenever there's a chance, you start soloing instead.
เอาแปลก็ได้ครับก็เขาก็บ
We'll
อก
see
ว่า
what you're getting out of it.
let me translate เขาก็บอกว่าถ้าเกิดคนที่โซโล่ก่อนเรามันร้อนแรงมากใช่ไหมฮะเราก็ไม่จำเป็นต้องไม่เราก็สามารถที่จะ drop ลงมาได้ไม่จำเป็นต้องแบบร้อนแรงเท่าเขาแล้วก็ค่อยๆพูดในภาษาของเราเนี้ยครับไม่ต้องกลัวค่อยๆพูดในแบบของเราค่อยๆให้ความหมายกับโน้ตของเราที่จะสื่อไปหรือสมมุติว่าถ้ารู้ว่าไอ้คนเนี้ยมันโซโล่รุนแรงมากเขาก็อีกทางหนึ่งเราก็ไปโซโล่กับเขาก็ได้เราก็จะได้ไม่ต้องกลัวอะไรเงี้ยครับ Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Okay, there's you play for an audience, but you usually also play with the group, right? So if you take it down a little bit and you start to try to communicate with the group that you're playing with, you play some ideas maybe, and then you leave some space for the other people to fill out the space a little bit. That's usually going to be a lot more interesting, to listen to and to play also. Because if you play too much the whole time and you're up here and the energy, everybody has to work out, and really play that energy. But if you take it down a little bit and you leave some space, sometimes people will fill that in. And then you can start building from there. So try to just, I would try to just do my own thing and not worrying about so much about the other people. So try to play melodic and try to make some space too.
And I think that's the best point that I think we should try to communicate to the students there, that to be yourself and to do your own thing. And he said that a few times, and I think that's the most important point that you're making there. And we shouldn't be intimidated, right? You should just be yourself when you improvise, right? Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, that's the idea I would say.
Yeah.
It's not about competition really. It's you should play music together, and it should be fun to play. You shouldn't be afraid of playing after somebody else. And if that happens, then you have to try to make your own personality come through, and then you take it down, or you start wherever you want to start, of course. But if you feel like diminishing the energy of the music, that's not a big problem, really. Sometimes people can be a little irritated, but you try to make your own thing, and then you grow from there.
Well, you can if we listen to the Monk and Coltrane record, and you can hear two completely different personalities and two completely different levels of intensity on that album. Coltrane literally laying everything on the table, and Monk being his sparse, only rhythmically oriented self. And that's a perfect example of how that contrast can work in jazz. Just be yourself, like you said. You're totally right. And you can hear that example in many jazz albums, actually. And particularly when you get something, the contrast between, like you said, a saxophonist and a guitar, or a saxophonist and a piano, or something like that.
Yeah, it's a very good point.
Another really good example is also the Count Basie and Oscar Peterson piano duo album. It's kind of hard to imagine two pianos in a room together anyway, but like Oscar, who's always burning, and Count Basie, who will play like 3 notes at a time and just kind of let it hang. That's another great example.
And that's the great thing about jazz, is there's room for all those personalities in there.
I could imagine how Count Basie felt like he was going to solo after Oscar Peterson. That would be really scary. He had a personality, and he was trusting that.
Yeah.
That's what you need to get to too, so that you are confident in yourself, and you feel like, okay, I can do my thing too.
Yeah, that's
and
it.
For everybody.
Yeah, that's it.
Well, that's a good question, though. More, please. Thanks for helping me out with answering all this.
มีใครจะถามอะไรเพิ่มไหมครับอาจารย์โอเชิญหน่อยไหมอาจารย์อ้นครับมีอะไรจะถามไหมเอ่ยน้องถามไปเลยนะมีในแชทใช่ไหมครับอาจารย์โอเชิญก่อนเลยได้ครับแล้วเดี๋ยวค่อยตามด้วยแชทก่อน
I think there's another question in the chat.
Yeah, I see that. From the minor flat 6 chord, some people always say avoid notes. Yeah. There's a lot of discussions about avoid notes. But really, a lot of people say, you should avoid this and you should avoid that. And I've been using that too when I was teaching in the beginning. But But after a while, when you start to know all the chord tones and stuff, I mean, those tones in betweens are really interesting too. And you can start to, when you start to hear them and you start to naturally include them in your melodies, then you can use them too. I mean, it's called avoid notes, but you shouldn't really avoid them. You should just make them a passing note, maybe. Because if you jump on them and you play them, you know, the first time you see that, you know, you jump to it from another note, and I mean jumping by more than a second or a half step, a whole step or a half step. If you move by a stepwise to it, it's never a problem. But if you jump to like one of those avoid notes, then it's going to be a problem. But you always use it melodically when you play a line. So I would say that never avoid the avoid notes. Play them, but carefully, because those are the spices in the whole thing. So it's like you play an F major scale. This note is called an avoid note because it changes the function of the harmony, right? You're in tonic F. So you're in F, right? But if you play this note, it changes it to a subdominant or a dominant area. So that's why you can't really use that when you're in tonic, right? But you have to use it as a passing note, because this one, it creates a tension. You're going, and that's the harmonic tension of moving from a subdominant area going back to tonic. And that's the same thing usually with, you know, if you're in an F and you play an A minor, so that's the same thing. You need the F because that's retaining the key, but to play it right on the downbeat of the A minor may sound strange because you, well, it's not a very good example. I'm sorry, Chris. The A is also a tonic, but it's not an F major 7. Let's take another one. That's a better example. Well, if you're in F and you play an B flat major 7, sometimes people say that the E would be a temporary avoid note because it changes the mode to a more like a what's it called? A Lydian, but also like a modal flavor. But it also changes it to kind of a dominant, so that the Lydian chord in this case also becomes like a dominant because of you have both the 7th and the 3rd or the 4th of the scale in it, so it changes the function to a dominant. And that always, those avoid notes, they usually, that's the thing they have, they always change the function usually from the function you're in to another function. If you talk about functional harmony, tonic, subdominant, and dominant. So that's why people sometimes call it avoid notes, because you want to avoid it because you're in a certain harmonic area and you don't want to confuse that too much. So that's why they call it avoid notes. You try to avoid it if you want to jump to it, or if you want to like stress it on the downbeat or something, then it sounds strange because you are confusing the function of the harmony. But don't avoid it melodically, because melodically that's what makes the flavor of it. I mean, that's a long answer maybe, but I try to explain why it's called avoid.
Okay, maybe maybe translate now. คำถามคือ minor 7 flat 6 chord นะครับแล้วก็มี avoid notes นะครับเขาบอกว่าน่าจะเป็น pension ที่ดีนะครับแล้วก็อาจารย์วราก็ตอบว่าก็มันก็ไม่ควรจำเป็นต้องเลข avoid notes นะครับแล้วก็การที่จะเลข avoid notes ก็คือที่จะอยู่ใน area ของ tonic หรือ dominant นะครับถึงต้องการเปลี่ยนนะครับเพราะฉะนั้นก็ไม่ต้องคิดว่ามันเป็น avoid note แต่ว่าอยากให้ใช้เป็นอะไรเมื่อกี้เป็น passing note เป็นโน้ตผ่าน นะครับซึ่ง avoid note เนี่ยมันใช้ในตอนที่แค่เปลี่ยนฟังก์ชันเท่านั้นเองจริงๆก็เป็นถ้าแปลภาษาไทย avoid เป็นโน้ตที่หลีกเลี่ยงนะครับก็คือโน้ตที่มันใช้ได้แหละมันไม่ใช่โน้ตที่ต้องไม่ได้ใช้เลยมันก็ใช้ได้อยู่แล้วนะครับเพียงแต่ว่าหลีกเลี่ยงในบางสถานการณ์เท่านั้นเองนะครับโอเค that's it ครับnext มี question ไหมครับมีคำถามไหมครับ
Yeah, there was one thing I forgot. Maybe if you play an A minor and you play an F on top, then that chord doesn't sound like A minor. It sounds like an F major 7 over a third, and that's also makes it a little confusion. What chord it is. So that's why the avoid note is called avoid. You play it, it's going to change the chord a little bit sometimes. So that's just a further explanation of the chord tone or the term avoid note.
ครับ
Don't worry about the avoid notes. I think they're not.
Yes, yeah. I'm agree. Yeah, I'm explain about the avoid note is should be we can play the avoid note. That's
Yeah.
right. Yes.
Stepwise. Don't jump to it. They don't call it.
Yep. Maybe you can explain about we talk about comping. Maybe we talk about the scale and arpeggio before. Now we start for think about the comping. We how to practice or how to thinking about the practice the comping.
Okay, very good question. Let me just start with how I usually think of the guitar when I'm comping anyway. Chris, then I try to make the important chord tones like the third and the seven in the middle strings. So if I play an F major, I would play an A and E, or an E and an A, and that's usually enough. And if I want to play a B flat, I go to A flat and D, and back. Or let's say I play a blues, so I play an A and E flat. And I'll play. Now if I play a 1-6-2-5, it's like E. So that usually helps a lot to make some of the other strings available for other things. So if I want to play bass line, yeah. So now I can play the third and the seven in the middle, and then I play whatever bass line I want. Right now I was using a concept of playing the root on 1, something leading to the fifth on 2, and then the fifth on 2, and then something leading to the next chord on the fourth beat, and then going to a new root. So always root on 1 and 5 on the third if there's a whole bar of the same chord. So that was the concept here. I play the middle strings, the third and the seven, and then the root or the fifth. So you can do that, I don't know if you can see it now. Maybe I should lower it a little bit. But I just use that concept for a lot. And then when you have time, you can add some other things on top of that. So let's say you play an F major 7 with a 9. You have it right there. And then you go to the D7, 13 maybe. Flat 13 would maybe be better. And then G minor with a 9. And then the A7 with a flat 13. So I try to make voice leading on the top string or the second string there on the top of the voicing, right? So it's like this, F major 7 with a 9, D7, flat 13, D minor 9, and then C7 with flat 13. If I don't want to make it diatonic, if it's diatonic, I keep this. So now I have a little space in the chord. I don't fill it out too much. But if I'm in the way, I'll just keep the third and the seven. And then rhythmically, you know, if you play with a piano player in the group, which is always difficult maybe for a guitar player, but then you try to play some solid rhythm that the pianist can trust, so that you're not all over the place. You try to play some steady rhythm that the piano player can understand and follow, and you don't change it the whole time. Some people think that, I have to change all the time, otherwise I'm boring. But that's no problem really, because the function you have when you play rhythm guitar is to supply a good solid rhythm with a good solid harmony for a soloist or whatever, singer and stuff. So then it's okay to be a little boring actually. But you can vary it. Like I was playing now some kind of, one quarter note, a dotted quarter note, like one. So that's just 1 and 6 2 5. So and then I add things, and I could add more if there's space. If I play with somebody who needs more, what should I say, more density, I can add the top string too. So I play the F major 7 with a 9 and a 5th, maybe like this. And then the D7 with a flat 13 and a diatonic 9. And then D minor 7 11 like this. And then I play maybe I'll alter that to a C7 flat 13. That was first a 9 and maybe a flat 9 and a 13. I can change that to whatever I want, as long as I have some good voice leading. So I can add this. It starts to get really fun to make accompaniment, right? So I tried, that's all I did there, pretty much all I did anyway, was to play third and the 7 on the middle strings, and then I add whatever I feel is good melodically to add on top of that. I start with one string, and if that's not enough and I feel like I need more, usually the less you play when you accompany, then the better it is. And sometimes you will see big band charts where there's there's F major 9 and then D7 sharp 9 flat 13, blah blah blah, and then for the next beat there's another chord. There's one chord for every beat, because they wrote down what's written in the saxophone sections. So all that stuff is impossible to do on guitar, maybe if you play it fast. So then just play the third and the 7 and you're home. The third and the 7 is what's important. And then of course the rhythm too. If you play in a big band or something, that's usually you play like Freddie Green, right? So it's like, and then maybe it's better you turn down the guitar so you can hit it a little harder and play bigger chords maybe. So then the arm should be really relaxed. You can put a metronome on 2 and 4, and when you don't hear the metronome, that's when you're right on the beat. So 1 2 3 4, 1 2 3 4. So you have it really relaxed. You just drop the hand, really. So somebody takes your hand, it should be very relaxed. So just a little harder on 2 and 4. 1 2 3 4 1. Just like that, if you want to play like Freddie Green and more steady 2 or 4/4 thing. But I always prefer to play the third and the 7 in the middle. I really stress that because I think it's very useful.
Mm-hmm.
And stay out of the way of the bass and also to stay out of the way of the soloist. And then if the soloist needs more tension, then you can add a tension note on top of that on string too. And then, yeah, that could help a little bit.
Yep okay we translate now ผมถามเรื่อง comping นะครับก็ลองถามดูว่าเขามีอาจารย์โอลาเขามีวิธีอะไรก็แนะนำเรื่อง comping ด้วยตัวสายกลางสาย3สาย4ด้วยเล่นตัว third และตัว seven นะครับแล้วก็ถ้าเล่นได้กับ seven ของคอร์ดแล้วต่อไปก็ add ที่ root นะครับในสาย5สาย6นะครับเบสิกก็คืออะไรตัวจังหวะ1กับ3ก็เป็นตัว1กับตัว5นะครับแล้วก็สามารถทำเบสไลน์ได้แล้วก็ถ้าจังหวะ4มันก็มี approach อย่างที่เราทราบพอต่อไปจาก third กับ seven นะครับก็จะ add ตัว tension มาที่เป็นสาย2นะฮะก็จะเป็น add เมื่อกี้ก็ add ตัว 9 add ตัว flat 13หรือ13ได้นะครับแล้วก็เมื่อกี้เขาพูดถึงเรื่องเวลาเล่นกับเปียโนนะครับก็ให้ solid rhythm กับ solid melody ก็คือให้มันหนักแน่นไว้เพื่อจะได้คนเปียโนจะได้รู้ว่าเราคนกีตาร์เล่นอะไรนะครับอาจจะบอกว่าอาจจะน่าเบื่อหน่อยแต่ว่าก็มันเป็นวิธีที่จะทำให้2คนเล่นด้วยกันได้นะครับแล้วก็เลยพูดถึงเลยโยงไปถึงเรื่อง Big Band นะครับ Big Band ถ้า Big Band ก็เลยยกตัวอย่างการเล่นของ Freddie Green นะครับที่ทุกคนทราบก็เป็นให้ฝึกcomping ที่จังหวะ accent ที่ 2 and 4นะครับ 2 and 4แล้วก็อันนี้ก็จะเป็นสไตล์ Big Band หน่อยนะครับแล้วก็สุดท้ายเมื่อกี้ก็จะเป็นแบบเหมือนกับโซโล่ในคอร์ดนะครับก็ตัวเขาคิดตัว Melodic Line ก็เป็นตัว Melodic on สาย2มั้งครับที่เป็น tension เท่าหน่อยที่เป็น tension ก็คือ add ตัวจากตัว third and ตัว seven เดิมนะครับก็ประมาณนี้ครับthat's it we don't have any question now นักเรียนนักน้องมีคำถามไหมครับเรื่อง rhythm อาจารย์โอมีคำถามไหมครับอาจารย์แดนมีคำถามไหมครับ
There's a question here in the chat and it's from Pasara Inlek. Can you question? I don't really understand the question. I don't know what that is. What is the cage system? Can anybody tell me?
I think that refers to playing in everything in a particular position.
Okay.
Yeah,
that's a good question then, because I try to avoid positions.
Yeah, that's kind of the way I teach too. So I don't know. Yeah,
I think playing in position. I mean, that's the way everybody learns from the start, right? But then after a while, it gets very limited.
absolutely.
You need to play along the strings more to make it melodic and stuff. But of course, you have to learn the positions anyway. But the way I play the scales usually, I've been starting now since I have to relearn my fingers. Everything. I decided I'm going to play 3 notes per string, so I play that all the time now, and it had to made me kind of relearn the whole thing. So if I play an F major scale, I would play like this: F. And if I'm up here, then I play 3 strings at a time. F, F, F. So then I don't ever think about positions anymore. It's just 3 notes at a time on the string.
So would you say positions are a place to start only and then go out from there, something like that?
Yeah. If I would start over, I would start just thinking the notes really as fast as I can, and then start to thinking where are the notes.
Yeah.
And also, of course, I used to play that. I was taught to play like 12 positions for each scale.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I know that's the kind of Berkeley William Levitt method. So you start to practice the stretches, so you can play like if I play A major 7 and then A, if I play it in the same position, and then I play A, and then A, or A, and so I have 12 positions for each scale, but you know, that becomes so many scales that you start to forget, you know, the fingering. So then I just decided I'll play 3 notes per string, and then that's it. And then you can play all the scales like that, no problem. I think that's a thing that I have. I think it's many people use that, and of course there's other ways you can play, like you can change position. Also, a lot of people do that. I mean, you play diminished scales, for example. I play and say A flat an A. And let's say C diminished scale, maybe half a whole. So I might play that. If I want to play it in position, I play it with 3 notes, then 4 notes on this string. And then if I move it, sorry. There's a lot of different ways to play that, but you can play it with stretches on the 4th string too, if you're in that position, and then stretches on the 5th string, and then stretches on the outer strings, the E string. So double stretches on those. But usually that's the diminished scale could also be played like 3 notes a string, and then you change the position. So it would be like this. So you just, you know, adjust 1 fret for each string. So I'm trying to get out of the cage system, but I think it's good to start with, to just have a vocabulary to start with. I'm not saying you shouldn't use it, but try to think of the notes while you're doing it. Usually say it out loud or sing it at the same time. So I say F, G, A, B flat, C, D, E, F, and like that. So you really think, because otherwise a lot of people or guitar players, they tend to fool themselves and they just play it real fast and they have no idea what the notes are. So I try to, I've seen that so many times that I really try to encourage people to know a little more what they're doing.
Yeah.
Thanks for explaining, Don.
No problem.
Okay, any more questions?
I think we have time for one last question before we wrap things up. Chris ครับอาจารย์โอครับ Would you like to ask would you do the honor for the last question?
Anybody? Or there's one thing that I just want to do if you talk about guitar playing, and that's playing on 1 string. I just do that real quick. So the same thing, I mean, I was talking about playing chord tones before, and if you play it on 1 string, it's difficult in the beginning, but it usually helps thinking of where you want to go and start to hearing lines. So if I play the F, let's say 1, 6, 2, 5 in F again, it will be like this. G minor, C7, F, A7 or a D7. So I would try and practice like that, really slow, just to make sure that I know what I'm doing, and then I start to hear the lines and where to go to, you know. And playing on 1 string is really helpful, because then you're not talking about any kind of positioning or anything. You just talk about lines, just like a piano player would play. So I think that's also helpful starting out playing on changes. and trying to nail the chord tones on 1 and 3. Okay, last question. What was that? Sorry, I interrupted.
no worries เชิญเลยครับโอครับ
งั้นขอถามเป็นเบสิกแล้วครับเรื่องเบสิกแล้วกันนะครับ Can you hear me Mr. Ola
Yeah.
Okay I think maybe you can talk about the swing feel I think most people play is not swing something like that Can you explain how to play like very swing very effective way to practicing this thing
Yeah, how to practice swing feel. Yeah,
Yep.
That's a difficult one. I think you have to listen to a lot of music, and that will help you getting into the feel. And also, since I had my stroke, I've had a really problem to pick the notes on the right time. And it's it's microtonal, not tonal, micro timing. It's milliseconds that makes it work. So you can just like when I was playing now, I try to play with a swing feel. But that sounds really stupid sometimes, but if you speed it up, it would be a little better. But you have to kind of exaggerate it, like now I'm playing with alternate picking, so I try to make the upstroke a little more accented, maybe 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3. But then sometimes I play with arpeggio picking instead. If I play like when I play the scales, I played. Oh, you can't see my hand maybe, but it's like moving down, up, down, down, up, down. So whenever I change the string, it's 2 downbeats, right? So down, down. Now I change the string, and then in the same downbeat, I do the other string. So that's called like arpeggio picking or something like that. So that's like sweep picking. And then it's really hard to do the swing. But if you do it like alternate picking, it's a lot easier if you accent the downstroke or upstroke, I mean. So you try to accent that a little bit. Yeah, I can't really do it anymore, but it's close. I'm gonna get there, but it takes some practice. This stroke thing takes forever to get rid of. I'm sorry about that, but I don't know if I answered your question, but talking about picking on the guitar, I think it helps to have a little bit of accent when you play the upbeat. But I think the main thing is to listen to a lot of jazz players, and if you want to get that. And also play the scales like that, like I just did now. I just play F scale, and then I try to play it with an accent. If I was in F major 7, I try to play the 3rd and the 7 or the chord tones 1 and 3, and I try to make it chromatic to those notes or to any chord tones, and then I try to play with the swing rhythm the whole time. So if you practice like that, I think you'll get there no problem. But it's important, of course, to have a right feel. But yeah, it's just a practice.
I agree with you with the important for the listen to the swing song. That's right. We can practice and listen to the swing feel in the song. They're very important. Okay. Thank you very much. จันทงครับเราจะมีคำถามไหมหรือจะ
มีท่านไหนจะถามคำถามเลยเพิ่มเติมไหมครับ
เด็กๆมีคำถามไหมครับเขินมากนะ เงียบมาก
ไม่น่าจะมีแล้วนะครับ
โอเค
ได้ครับไม่น่าจะมีแล้วครับนั้นHey, Ola, I think that's the end of the this online workshop. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you very much, everyone, and all the faculty members from Silpakorn. So It was quite a, I mean, informative and great workshop. Thanks to you, and we hope that we can do this kind of like cooperation between Stockholm University and Royal Music College of Music in Stockholm again next time. Maybe this time next time in person. We can do the joint projects together in the future.
Yeah,
Okay.
that would be great. Thanks a lot for inviting me. I think this collaboration could grow, and we can meet and go to each other's universities and have some exchange, and also some students could make exchanges and things like that. I think it's a nice way to to meet. You come from your background, and we come from our, and we meet, and we kind of understand that we're all the same. So.
All right. Okay, thanks again, Ola, and I hope to see you in person next time.
Okay.
We'll try to get together in person. Thanks a lot for a question. And thanks a lot for helping me out. Explaining it.
Okay, and we have here of Silapakon Faculty of Music. We would like to thank you very much for Mr. Ola. I think we get to the some theory, some experience, some your exercise and everything. I think this is for the next step. Maybe we can cooperate in more to do face to face. I think it's too hard when you explain to the online when you can playing or for some example. We hope that go to the Sweden in next time. Okay, thank you very much on today.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you all. Yeah, great. So we leave the room now, I guess. Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Okay, we leave now. Okay, thank you ครับ ขอบคุณเด็กๆทุกคนครับ สวัสดีครับ สวัสดีครับ สวัสดีครับ
สวัสดีครับ ขอบคุณครับ
สวัสดีครับ เราต้องลาโอล่าอีกทีไหมafter